This thing is a veteran of sim racing. It has basically seen everything. It has changed from a Formula Esports type it had in the past, Red Bull colors. It was packaged with the Podium DD. Essentially, it is a familiar wheel with some important changes. So the ClubSport Formula V3 is not the only product being launched today by Fanatec. Fanatec finally saw the light and they decided to release the Wheel Hub. What this does is allows you, without breaking the bank, to use a third-party wheel on a Fanatec ecosystem, and you will unlock the force feedback. Sadly, it doesn't have any USB pass-through. That will be $99 or 99 euros, so it doesn't break the bank, and you can pre-order those right now. Before going to the video, a big thank you to all the viewers, members, and subscribers. Without you, videos like these wouldn't be possible. I'm trying to get to 100,000 subscribers. If you could help the channel out by pressing like and subscribe, that would be great. And also check out channel sponsor Coach Dave Delta. The link will be in the description below. This new version is same, but different. Of course, visually, the biggest difference is the inclusion of this small screen, a 2.9-inch OLED display in black and white. You know, the same one present in some of the wheels, the old DD1 and DD2 bases, the one that in my GT DDD Extreme review, I recommended Fanatec some 2 years ago to bring to mobile wheels. Yeah, that's the one. That's visually the biggest difference between this wheel and the other version, but there's another one, which is this wheel has increased in size up to 290 millimeters, so it's more on the GT3 wheel size. And the price, that will be 350 euros or US dollars, and in Canadian terms that will be around 500 Canadian dollars. It's close to $100 more expensive than the GT Neo, a little bit cheaper than the Conspit 300 GT. It's more expensive than the PXN GT1, and despite the screen, there is sadly no sim hub compatibility. Let's have a quick look at the wheel. The unboxing experience is extremely straightforward. There's only like 3 things inside. There's the wheel, there is a small manual in this box with keycaps. Everything inside that box is finally made out of just cardboard or paper, no plastic inside, which is for me a huge advantage. And now these keycaps, you can apply them. I've pre-applied a few over here. These are the same keycaps that we've seen for years with Fanatec. They work quite well and they give a good feeling click because the buttons are good in this wheel. In terms of construction, this is more or less what we've seen before in the past with the previous wheels that they've done, previous Formula wheels. There's, I think, a thicker plate, carbon plate, 5mm on this specific version. But in terms of builds, there's a mixed bag because even though the quality of the plastics is okay for this price point, something missed in this quality control because this wheel creaks when you apply some torsion, which is quite loud. I've asked Fanatec about this. They said before sending this out, they were actually figuring out some issues on the quality control side of their assembly line. Apparently, this one skipped that quality control and came with this problem. And I was told that none of the other content creators were having this issue. So apparently this is only my unit that has this issue. Whatever that means, if there are more in stock or not with the same problem, I would not know. In terms of build quality, everything else besides this is more or less what it should be for this price point. It doesn't really feel that premium, all things considered, compared to wheels that are twice the price, but normally it doesn't need to. It feels more or less in terms of build and materials as something as the Conspit. Conspit feels a little bit better, the 300 GT, more or less around the C-Magic or even the PXN GT1, though it does have that quality control issue that I've mentioned. In terms of specifications, you have the 2.9-inch screen, a 393 flag system that is controlled by their own software, 11 buttons, 2 switches or 2 two-way switches. I call them nipple switches because they look like that. 2 7-way D-pads. I believe the previous version had on this side a 4-way D-pad. This is a 7-button funky switch. 3 12-way rotaries that can be configured into up and down or left and right, and the 12-way in the software. I'll show you that later. I believe in the previous version this was a controller for the clutches at the back, which this wheel sadly doesn't have. The rotaries have been reworked. This rotary now has a really nice weight to it. It doesn't apply in mistake like it happened on the previous version of this. This has a really, really good strength into it. It's not like very difficult to turn. It's just perfectly weighted. Tends to be the case with a lot of buttons in Fanatec. And this one comes with the click, so that means you have 3 inputs in this button or in this module over here on each side, so a total of 6. All of the buttons sound really nice. Even the shifters sound nice. Shifters, Fanatec do great shifters. Now for the cap choices, I'm used to these cap choices, so it's really not that bad. Sadly, it's not retro illuminated like some of the price point that you see. Everything feels fine in terms of buttons. I would love that instead of this cap that they have chosen for the for this wheel, over here they've chosen a metal cap or something that feels better, something that feels heavier. I believe the Simagic Neo has plastic rotary knobs, and they do feel better than this. So in terms of quality, besides the quality control issue, which is kind of a big deal, it feels more or less the same level as before, though there is something new, which is the handles are now removable. On the previous version, I believe in the one that I had on the Podium DD, inside there were some sort of motors, rotation motors, but since Fanatec is increasing the number of wheelbases with full force, I don't think they will need it anymore, which makes the wheels very, very light. This is 1,350 grams, more or less. I've weighted it's 1,370 grams on my scale. It's basically almost 200 grams lighter than the Simagic Neo, which is a big deal. If you want to remove the handles, it's quite simple. There are 3 Torx screws on each side. You just remove the Torx screws, plop those out, put new ones in. I believe there are already brands that do it for other wheels of the sort. Maybe it will be compatible with these as well, but I cannot be sure. The handles are made of some sort of fake leather, which is an improvement over the Alcantara. You guys know the rants I always have with Alcantara. So there is improvements over here in terms of the 290 millimeter size, which I feel they're much better. Though the quality control, man, they kind of killed it for me. We need to talk about the software because there is so much to talk about here, and let's go do it because it's quite long. First of all is the multi-position switches. This is where you change from up and down type of switch, could be very useful for a lot of people, into a pulse switch. That means a 12 position switch from 1 to 12. As you can see, it changes. If you go to constant, most likely it is the case that there's some sort of issue in the game. If you have some sort of issue in one game that is not detecting the MPS, you can change it to constant to see if there's some sort of compatibility available. You also have auto that will change it depending on the game. Now on ITM, this is where it starts to become interesting and also a bit dated, I think. So the ITM is essentially what you see in the screen. There's a legacy mode. If you don't like the amount of information or the type of information you have on this screen, you can have a legacy mode, so it will give you the speed, it will give you the shift you are, or the gear you're on. I like the page 1 because it tells you the current lap, last lap, lap and position. On page 2, there's a couple of features. One of them is dated, which will be the case for the DRS zone. If you go to the new and improved Formula 1 2026 type of rules, you're really not going to get DRS. So this part is dated. Maybe it will change in the future. For example, whenever that aero special mode that happened in Kit, that 1980s show, where the wings change and all of that, maybe this will be able to be activated or deactivated from there, and you'll see it on the screen. But also there's something interesting, which is the fuel. You see this box over here? This is more or less a target. Once it hits this target, and this will be the case for not only fuel RS, but also, for example, here on page 3, once you see this, it means once the data tells the wheel that there's a threshold or there's a target number to be hit, the page automatically shifts to that one, which could be quite useful. For example, in games where you need to save fuel, like Limo Ultimate, iRacing, when you do big races, or sprints where you have one or two pit stops. This could be quite useful. However, once again, the RS zone not available. On page 3, there's TC settings. You have page 4 for last lap, best lap, a car ahead and car behind. Page 5, there is, for me, a big issue. It might not be the case in the Formula 1 games or other games, but in iRacing is extremely picky or extremely weird about tire information. This picks up the black box information that doesn't pick up the information that we'll see on the dashboard, which I'm not sure if it's correct or not. So it's not exclusive of this. I see it in SimHub as well. It picks up the black box information, so it tends to be only refreshed every time you go to the pits and you change your tires. In Limo Ultimate, this is roughly wrong by 30 degrees because it's probably picking up information from some other part of the tire, maybe the outside part of the tire, as in not the inside, not the core, but the outside part of the tire maybe picks up from there, because this tends to be, once again, off by 20 or 30 degrees. I would love to see some sort of mix and match information where you can build your own type of screens, even adding the delta from your best time. That could be very useful as well. I think there is potential to do some changes here, or to increase the amount of choices that you have for the ITM. Now, on the rev lights, you can do whatever you want on your rev lights. If you want by RPM or percentage or per gear or default or whatever you want. The type of colors that you have, remember this is a 9 LED count, so you have 9 different LEDs over here. You can configure between all of these basic colors, or turn off the basic colors. You can do whatever you want. And you also have the flag LEDs, which is quite useful. You can change between the green lights, whatever you want to activate, deactivate, driving aids when the wheel locks in, traction control, light signals, pit signals if you are, flashing somebody. However, this is only optional. And by what I mean about optional is that if you go over here, and this is sometimes quite important to get the data coming in, you need to activate the support for specific games. For example, you can press it to enable support. I have done so in Assetto Corsa, Evo, and iRacing. But you don't need to use your own configurations. If you press Use Native Game Support, you will be using whatever is coming from the game. That includes the flags, includes the RPM. And this is quite interesting because inside of this, for a lot of cars that I've tried, the LEDs will display exactly, or within reason, what is happening in certain cars. That includes the color schemes, that includes the flags. If you have like some side flags at the side, those flags will also appear, and then also the red flags or the blue flags or the green flags or the pit limiter and all of that. So it is interesting. You can be driving a McLaren, the shifter lights will come up and down in the same color pattern. It's a different pattern for the Corvette. It's a different pattern in certain hypercars, but not all cars will have it. And once that car doesn't have it, it will revert into a default state of lights, but everything else is basically the same. So this is a really nice touch. It brings some immersion. And even though it's not 100% coverage for all cars, whatever is available now, it is quite decent. The only downside I see on this in terms of the app support or the Use Native Game support is that at the state of this beta version or this app version that I'm testing, there's a bit of lag sometimes between what is happening on the screen and what is happening on the rev light LEDs. And that also includes sometimes the RPM lights will hang for a second or two until you shift, and then they'll restart again. Other than that, I actually think this has some sort of potential, especially the screen, but I do wish that they let us do more with it. As for the driving, as I said, the ergonomics are pretty good in this wheel. The wheel became a little bit larger, so the buttons did move a bit, but the fundamental ergonomics, they stayed pretty much the same. And that means that the driving, the comfort, it's actually pretty good. Buttons are lovely. I love how tactile Fanatec does the clicks when using them, especially the shifters. They are just a beauty. And in my opinion, Fanatec continues to deliver the best shifters around, bar none. I can say as well that the handles could be a little bit wider, but since they are interchangeable, I guess there will be an option, either that's using gloves or tennis gun tape, or even some other third party that will be releasing their own handles, maybe even Fanatec. The usability of this wheel is top notch. So many buttons, it's really easy to control the MFTs, the multiple TC functions, the multi-TC settings, the menu navigation, and with some imagination, maybe use it for Photoshop, who knows. The OLED screen is visible, but it needs more usable screens. What is available is, for me, not enough for iRacing and Le Mans Ultimate. Maybe it will be good enough for Formula 1 2025 or 26 whenever it comes out. But for a sim racing title, it does need more options. I do love the LEDs though. In Le Mans Ultimate, the GT3 cars actually use the same light patterns as in game, adapted, of course, to 9 LEDs. So there is an immersion factor here. For cars without profile, it reverts back to a basic LED pattern. I must say that even though this is a beta software, like I said before, sometimes the lights lag or even stop for a few seconds. Hopefully this will be corrected when it's out. There's actually a big impact that this wheel brings to your force feedback. That is just the case of its nature. Because it's a wheel of a smaller size, it has definitely a positive impact on the perceived quality of the force feedback. That is not exclusive to this wheel, it is how physics works. You know, smaller wheels means a smaller radius, which means more acceleration. And lighter wheels mean more torque. Add both together, there is definitely a perception of force feedback exchange. It is not exclusive to this wheel or this ecosystem. Once again, if you have the same in Simagic, Simicube, or Ace Attack, the same happens. I just want to make this clear. The result is basically a much sharper force feedback feel, more present. It's harder, better, faster, stronger even. But it needs to be said that the quality control issues that I've mentioned can be heard. It is a constant creaking in my steering wheel, even though I've asked around and it doesn't seem to be the case with everybody else that received this. It's not really new to the Fanatec Formula as well. Some had more, some had less, and some didn't. But that means with the extra torque of the Fanatec Podium DD, which is an amazing wheelbase, the result is a force feedback that is not only more physical, more direct, more raw, it also means the same forces that made the force feedback better makes using this for me a little bit of a pain in the butt because it's basically creaking everywhere. It is a significant blemish in an otherwise a great experience of using this wheel. So what we have here is a bittersweet conclusion, really. It's a good wheel and the 290mm wheel size does make sense. The ergonomics are there, the materials are actually okay, but the build quality and quality control have failed somewhere along the line for this unit. Fanatec also has not added some sort of backlighting to this, which could be a potentially a selling point as well. The 2.9-inch OLED screen works, though it needs some more options that serve games like Le Mans Ultimate, iRacing, or something that actually can be used in a deep way. The price is more than I would expect. The 350 euros is really not the end of the world. It is roughly between the 300 GT and GT Neo, but it is stuck in Fanatec's ecosystem. You can't use it on other wheelbases. It's very much the old way of doing the Fanatec business. Use their own stuff on their own stuff, and you cannot pick this up and use it on a Conspot or Simagic or whatever. And I think this type of wheel would actually be quite useful for those wheelbases as well. Maybe this is a pivoting point or starting point for Fanatec to change more or less the conversation on how they need to deal with the ecosystem going forward. In my opinion, Fanatec needs a major call of the wheels that are available, a major rethink of the ecosystem as well, with a direction that, in my opinion, could be used by any ecosystem. You pick up one of their wheels and you can use it in Mazda, Simagic, or whatever. And I think that the ClubSport Formula wheel, probably not this one, but you know, the format itself needs to be part of this conversation, because this wheel has seen some stuff. It has changed dramatically over the years to accommodate to multiple things, to multiple color patterns, to more entry level, less entry level. And I would love to see a version of this wheel that will be USB compatible, SimHub compatible, and maybe with a screen that is color screen. I don't mind the fact that it has, you know, a black and white screen, because there's really only so much things you can do with the screen anyways in sim racing. But I would like to see more information in this, and maybe a version even with backlights. That could be interesting. The format is already there. They have already made most of the work. But what do you think?